To be clear, I was fully aware of the conversations between September the 4th and 16th that I have outlined. I had been regularly briefed by my staff from the moment this first arose and had also reviewed all materials that had been produced. Further, my view had also formed at this point. Through the work of my department, my minister's office, and work I conducted on my own, that it was inappropriate for me to intervene in the decision of the Director of Public Prosecutions in this case and to pursue a deferred prosecution agreement.
In fact, I learned for the first time while watching the former Attorney General's testimony that she had made a final decision on the 16th of September. My understanding is that nobody in the PMO or PCO knew that at that time either.
On December the 5th of 2018, I met with Jerry Butts. We had both sought out this meeting. I wanted to speak about a number of things, including bringing up SNC and the barrage of people hounding me and my staff.
Minister Wilson-Raybould solicited the meeting with me. She also raised the subject with me. She asked if I had a view on the file, and I said I understood our offices were working together on ideas. We talked briefly about the idea of asking a retired Supreme Court justice for advice, but I noted that I had no expertise in the matter.
Jerry then took over the conversation and said how we need a solution on the SNC stuff. He said I needed to find a solution. I said no, and I referenced the preliminary inquiry and the judicial review. I said further that I gave the clerk the only appropriate solution that could have happened, and that was the letter idea that was not taken up. Jerry talked to me about how the statute was a statute passed by Harper and that he does not like the law. I said something like, that is the law that we have.
I said my understanding is that remediation agreements are brand new to Canada, and that the PPSC itself was not very old, having been brought into being during the Harper years. My suggestion was that it is a legitimate public policy discussion to have in this circumstance, and it would help clarify the Attorney General's powers in this and any subsequent case. I suggested she speak with the clerk or the public service for more expert advice. At no time did the former Attorney General suggest to me that Elder and Mathieu had done anything wrong.
On December 18th of 2018, my Chief of Staff was urgently summoned to a meeting with Jerry Butts and Katie Telford to discuss SNC. They wanted to know where I am at in terms of finding a solution. They told her that they felt like the issue was getting worse and that I was not doing anything. They referenced a possible call with the Prime Minister and the clerk the next day.
The second and final meeting I had on the file was with Jessica Prince, the Minister's Chief of Staff, and Katie Telford. There was no urgency to attend that meeting. I remember that meeting very, very differently than the account given last week.
I will now read to you a transcript of the most relevant sections of a text conversation between my Chief of Staff and I almost immediately after that meeting. Jessica. Basically, they want a solution, nothing new. They want external counsel retained to give you an opinion on whether you can review the DPP's decision here and whether you should in this case. I told them that would be interference. Jerry said, quote, Jess, there is no solution here that does not involve some interference, end quote.
I remember Ms. Prince saying that the minister didn't want to consider quote-unquote political factors in the decision and was worried about the appearance of political interference. I said that it's the minister's decision, of course, but to my mind, 9,000 people are not a political issue. It was a very real public policy problem. Either way, she decided, I could not see how having someone like Beverly McLaughlin give the minister advice constituted political interference.
Katie was like, quote, we don't want to debate legalities anymore, end quote. They keep being like, we aren't lawyers, but there has to be some solution here.
Ms. Telford's comments were reported here last week out of context. Ms. Telford was simply saying what we say all the time when legal matters come up in the presence of lawyers, that we are not lawyers and cannot debate the law.
She was like, quote, "If Jody is nervous, we would, of course, line up all kinds of people to write op-eds saying that what she is doing is proper," end quote.
On the op-ed point, she was simply saying that we would do our best to support the minister, whatever decision she chose to make.
On January the 7th, I received a call from the Prime Minister and was informed I was being shuffled out of my role as Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada. I will not go into details of this call or subsequent communications about the shuffle, but I will say that I stated I believe the reason was because of the SNC matter. They denied this to be the case.
On January the 7th, 2019, the Prime Minister phoned the Minister of Justice and Attorney General to inform her that he was shuffling cabinet and that she would be part of that shuffle. I was present for the entire conversation, as was Ms. Telford. The Prime Minister began the call by saying that Minister Bryson's sudden departure had put us in, quote, a tough spot. He said that he didn't want to shuffle cabinet, but that he needed our, quote, best players to move in order to, quote, pitch in. There was a long pause on the phone. Minister Wilson-Raybould said that she was, quote, a little bit shocked, unquote, because Mojag was, quote, her dream job. She said, IS is not my dream job. I'm not going to lie about that. The Prime Minister said, I know it is not your dream job, but it is core to this government's mission. Minister Wilson-Raybould said, quote, I feel I'm being shifted out of justice for other reasons. The Prime Minister replied that he was doing this shuffle because he had to, and because he thinks it's the best thing for the government and the country. He repeated that he wouldn't be doing it at all if it weren't for Minister Bryson's departure. He said, when you lose a team member, everyone else has to pitch in. The call concluded.